One moment you are walking through grass, the same grass you have walked through 1,000 times. The next, there is a sharp pressure on your ankle. Not pain yet. Pain comes later. Right now, it just feels like a pinch. You look down. 2 small puncture marks, barely visible, already beginning to swell. You have maybe 4 hours to live, and there is no hospital, no ambulance, no antivenom waiting in a refrigerator somewhere. There's only your group, standing around you, staring at 2 tiny holes in your skin, trying to remember everything they know. This is 50,000 years ago. And what happens next is nothing like what you'd expect. First, understand what ancient humans were actually dealing with. They didn't encounter snakes occasionally. They lived with them. They slept on the ground. They walked barefoot through tall grass where venomous snakes hunt at dusk. They reached bare hands into dark holes, searching for food and firewood. Every single day. The saw-scaled viper is barely longer than your forearm. Most people would walk past it without seeing it. But it has killed more human beings than any other snake species in recorded history. Its venom destroys the blood's ability to clot. A victim doesn't die fast. They bleed internally, slowly, over hours and days. The black mamba's venom is so fast-acting that, without treatment, the fatality rate approaches 100%. Symptoms begin within minutes. Breathing fails within hours. These animals shared the exact same landscape as your ancestors. The same grass, the same riverbanks, the same dark spaces under rocks where both humans and snakes sheltered from heat. Snakebite wasn't a rare emergency. It was a predictable, recurring event. Something everyone in the group had seen before. Something everyone had already thought about. The question is what they did about it. Here is what most people assume. They panicked. They tried whatever instinct told them. They sucked the wound, and then they mostly watched the person die. That assumption is wrong, completely wrong. What archaeologists and medical anthropologists have found across indigenous cultures on every inhabited continent tells a completely different story. Ancient humans had developed snakebite responses that were, in several critical ways, more medically sound than what most people would do today with no hospital within reach. Start with the thing everyone does that doesn't work. Sucking the wound. It appears in folk medicine on every continent. It feels like pulling the poison out. And modern toxicology has confirmed, repeatedly, that it removes less than 1% of the venom delivered. By the time the victim feels that first pinch, the venom has already entered the lymphatic system. No mouth can reach it. Cutting deeper only introduces infection into an already failing body. But here's what your ancestors understood, even without knowing why. The sucking was never the real treatment. What came immediately after was, they made the person stop moving. Completely. Paul Allen Cox of the Institute for Ethnomedicine documented this across indigenous populations on multiple continents. Across cultures with no contact, no shared language, no knowledge the other even existed, experienced healers all did the same thing immediately after a snakebite. They laid the victim flat, kept the bitten limb below the heart, spoke quietly, physically prevented the person from walking, running, or panicking. This is not superstition. This is functional medicine. Snake venom spreads through the lymphatic system, which is driven entirely by muscle movement. A victim who stays completely still slows the spread of venom to vital organs dramatically. It doesn't stop it, but it buys time. And in a world where the only antidote is the body's own immune system, time was everything. They noticed that victims who panicked died faster. That calm, motionless victims sometimes survived bites that should have killed them. And they built that observation into every response, passed it forward through every generation until it became knowledge so old that nobody remembered learning it. Modern emergency medicine calls this immobilization therapy. It is still the first recommended response to snakebite today. Your ancestors were practicing it 50,000 years before anyone wrote a medical textbook. But immobilization alone wasn't enough for the most venomous bites. Moe Eldon of the University of Khartoum documented the use of a plant called Andrographis paniculata by traditional healers across South and Southeast Asia, treating snakebite for thousands of years. When his team tested its compounds against cobra venom enzymes in a laboratory, specific molecules in the plant actively inhibited the enzymes responsible for tissue destruction. The plant that ancient healers had used for millennia was doing something chemically real. Then researchers looked across the world. In the Amazon basin, indigenous communities were using preparations from Mimosa pudica to treat snakebite. In West Africa, completely separate communities with no knowledge of the Amazon were using the same plant for the same purpose. South America, West Africa, South Asia, 3 continents. No connection. All arriving at the same botanical answer. They were not guessing. They were reporting what they saw. Your ancestors were doing science. They just didn't have a word for it yet. And then some of them did something that took modern medicine another 1,000 years to understand. They let themselves get bitten again. In communities living in high snake density regions across South Asia and sub-Saharan Africa, certain healers developed deliberate, repeated, low-level venom exposure over years. And the people around them noticed these individuals survived subsequent bites that killed others. Their bodies had changed. They had no concept of antibodies, no understanding of immunology, but they had noticed that surviving a bite made the next bite survivable. In 1895, French physician Albert Calmette created the world's first antivenom by injecting horses with gradually increasing doses of cobra venom and harvesting the antibodies from their blood. The exact same biological principle your ancestors had been applying for thousands of years. Every antivenom produced today works on the same logic discovered in a field with no equipment, no laboratory, and no language for what was being observed. 50,000 years ago, someone in the grass with 2 small puncture marks above their ankle, the group already moving, laying them flat, keeping them still, someone heading toward the plants they know, someone speaking quietly, calmly. They don't know about lymphatic fluid or enzyme inhibitors. They know only what their parents taught them and what their parents' parents taught before that. A chain of observed survival stretching back further than any of them can count, paid for one death at a time. The antivenom sitting in a hospital refrigerator near you right now is the end of a 300,000-year conversation between humans and snakes. Your ancestors started it. In grass, exactly like the grass where it all began. They just had to work much harder for the answer.